Yo, what's poppin' peeps? Welcome back to the channel, Zach Lesage here. Today we're going to go over the decks to watch out for if you are heading to a regional championships this weekend. Now, it's one of those things where we just had an exciting weekend of events with Indianapolis. Like, events have been going on, and now we have another full weekend of events. So these are the decks to watch out for. The list of the decks, including deck lists, are going to be available in the pinned comments, along with reference videos for most, so by all means, feel free to check those out. Be awesome. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to help support the content. Really boost the YouTube algorithm. Subscribing as well if you haven't already subscribed to the format. I'd love to hear some feedback in the comments if this is the type of video you're looking for, if there's any decks you think that I missed, what decks are you expecting, what deck are you bringing to regional championships. For myself, I'm going to be going to the New Jersey Regional Championships this weekend, so that's really where a lot of my focus is. So if there's anything that applies, I mean, they should all apply here, but again, watch out for local flavors in your metagame. For example, we might see more Arceus decks in North America, especially considering if you look at the results of Indianapolis Regionals. Elsewhere, there might be different results, such as if you're Europe, we might see more Rapid Strike, Urshifu, and Whimsicott. Keep those things in mind with your deck choice. And if you have any questions about that, feel free, let's spark a discussion in the comments. That being said, let's jump into the video, let's get it. You are now watching Zach Lesage, the best place to learn about competitive Pokemon TCG. Let's get it! Starting the party off hot is Rapid Strike Malamar. Number 10, it's one of those things where I think you gotta watch out for this deck, and let me tell you why. It's a single prize card deck, single energy attack cost, and it can knock out anything. Now, Rapid Strike Malamar, it's going to be ripping Rapid Strike cards from your hand, showing them to your opponent, attempting to get the knockout. I think a lot of, if you know about the strategy, you know. If you don't, well, we got that link in the pinned comment to show you what these decks do in video form. That's why I go a little bit shorter on these ones. But I do think that this deck will see some kind of presence because it's remained dormant enough where I think players might try to bring it back a little bit. So we'll have to see if it's something that, like, players have just been holding off on. Maybe they've attempted or found a way to beat Arceus decks. And I'm not trying to allude to anything. It's just more of a hunch. I also feel that in Europe or at the regionals that's going on in France this weekend, it's one of those things where between Stefan playing this deck early on, Joe Bernard playing this deck early on, we might see more Malamar out there than we might see elsewhere. So if you are going, that might be one of the more local hot picks. Slotting into number 9 is going to be Sylveon VMAX Toolbox. Now, this is kind of a reimagined version from some of the ones that have been successful at EUIC and in Joinville Regionals. Now, the deck's all about using Sylveon VMAX. It's got its attack where you have all the different colored Pokemon on the bench, and then you're able to kind of hit for more damage. Definitely a strong counter to Rapid Strike, Urshifu, or Pokemon that are weak to Psychic. Considering it's weak to Metal, you got Dark, Fighting, Grass, Metal, like all these different types that can really try to counter the metagame. Of course, you got Arceus Starbirth to search out things that you want. I think a deck like this can do well at a regionals. You definitely have to know what you're doing when it comes to playing a deck like this, but I do think this deck is hot, and it's interesting. Like, I think we'll expect some of it. That's why it's like placed lower on this list, but it's one of those things where Sylveon exists. You should expect it a little bit. If you haven't necessarily playtested this one, maybe dust it off or try it against your friend on PTCGO or build the deck in real life, because a deck like this can really surprise you if you are playing an event. At least look at the text that most Sylveon decks are playing. I would watch out for this one, but it might not necessarily be the most played one. However, if it is going to be played, I'd expect it to be played more in South America or being played in Europe based off event placements alone. Kicking off into 8th most deck to watch out for is going to be Lucario VSTAR with Arceus VSTAR. Now, it's one of those things where I didn't necessarily think Lucario was going to be on and poppin', but this deck is coming off hot at a win at Joinville Regionals. Arceus VSTAR provides a base and you can accelerate energies to your Crobat and Lucario depending on the matchup, and I mean, it's fighting in dark. I think that's really the theme. You also got Hoopa V so that you have answers to be Psychic type against a Rapid Strike Urshifu if you happen to run into one. Now, Lucario V-Star being a 2-prize card Pokemon that packs a punch might be doing better than Galarian Zapdos because it has a little bit more thickness to its HP, right? Like, it has 270, it might not necessarily get tackled over. You have Crobat VMAX to kind of accelerate your energy. Like, you have things to make things happen, okay? So if you are playing an event, this is a deck that I would expect to see Some of it around at the tables might not be the most popular deck, but it did win a regionals and players often want to imitate success. Again, this is a deck that I'd recommend, or if you are playing in any events coming up in South America soon, this deck did just win out there. Maybe players are going to try to replicate that success, because players typically try to replicate success from their own zone. Hopping into number 7, and this is a deck that I totally thought we'd see more play at Indianapolis Regionals, and across the board that whole past 2 weeks, is Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. And this deck has really seen a lot of success from when Robin Schulz won Liverpool Regionals to where this deck made 5 out of the top 8 spots at the European International Championships, and then this deck seemed to fall flat, except when Tord came second at the Bilbao Special Event. Why did that happen? Well, I think a lot of players have been teching Manaphy to block the Rapid Strike bench damage. I think that a lot of players are playing Dunsparce to block weakness in Arceus decks. A lot of players are also playing Hoopa V, Sylveon VMAX. They do not want to lose to this deck. And I think the reason why this deck is so low on this list, or the reason, I mean, I'm the one who controls it, so I'll tell you exactly why it's so low on this list. I think players are going to improperly continuously counter this. So when they're looking at the Ian Robb winning deck, or the Isaiah Bradner Beedrill second place deck, a lot of those decks featured counters to this deck. Now, they're going to play those counters without realizing that this deck may or may not need to be countered, which also makes this deck in a weird position where this deck might counter a lot more top players than it will players that are just blindly copying decks. So if you're blindly copying a deck going forward, ask yourself why certain tech cards are played. Things like Metacham are really going to be Manaphy counters and Dunsparce counters and stuff like that. So this deck's going to see success. I've heard through the grapevine a few players are preparing this deck, but you can't necessarily listen to every single rumor, right? I think Rapid Strike Urshifu is going to see some play. Maybe you want to stick the Manaphys in your deck. Maybe you want to risk it. We'll figure out how it goes. At number 6, we're going to be hopping into Whimsicott. Now, Whimsicott, it might be a little high up on this list, but it did win the Bilbao Special Event. And to me, I think that that's going to prove that this deck is going to see at least success in Europe. So again, if you are Europe-based, I think we're going to see a few of these. In North America, maybe we're going to see a little bit less of it, etc. Regardless, Whimsicott VSTAR does seem like it's pretty solid pick going forward. I think that Riley Holbert and Andrew Mahone of Tricky Jim really came clutch with the Zacian idea so that you are able to accelerate energies. It's not always going to work out because if you have a Fog Crystal, you could have attached the energy anyways, but it does turn an Ultra Ball or a Quick Ball potentially into an energy attachment, and I think that solves some more things. So you could go Trick Win, Crushing Hammer, whatever. I like the way the deck is built. Whimsicott is pretty decent in a nutshell. However, I do find this deck is relatively fragile when it comes to building it and coming up through there and just getting set up, that I'm personally staying away from it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that players do not like locking their opponents out of the game. So it's definitely a deck to be watching out for. Jumping into number 5, and right in the middle is going to be Arceus VSTAR Melanie Inteleon. Now, to me, I think that this deck is the definition of vanilla ice cream, is probably the best way I put it. It's one of those things where this, out of all the Arceus decks, is probably going to have the least amount of text. I mean, you got the Dunsparce, Zigzagoon, Manaphy package, and maybe or maybe not you need to be playing those Dunsparce and Manaphy. Only time will tell. I think that this version does pretty well in the mirror match because you should just be able to get set up. You have extra copies of Charon's Care compared to other decks, and if they're not knocking you out, you can just go Charon's Care and loop things over and over again. I think it's kind of hot, but it's really one of those things where this deck's basic. You're just going to be using Shady Dealings, Starbirth, Trinity Nova, all of those things. The basic does not mean bad, and I think that's something that we need to heavily consider going forward. You don't necessarily need all of the Beedrills and all that stuff. Those can certainly be hot in their own right, but I do think that this deck is going to spike up a little bit in play, at least in North America. So I would definitely watch out for this one. A lot of players have been talking about this one. I think Arc Inteleon Melanie is on its way up. Again, I do want to let people know that the lists are available in the pinned comments. So if you want to copy and paste them into PTCGO, PTCG Live, or see what the videos of reference I have going on there looking for a little bit more strategy, check those out. It's probably the last time I'm going to mention it for the video. Pinned comment below, check them out. Looking eerily similar here is going to be Arceus VSTAR Inteleon with the Dark package. You can see that it's basically the same deck, minus out some text, carve things out, cut the water energies, add dark energies, and toss in a Moltres V, and Hoopa V for good measure. And I mean, that should be enough to beat the Rapid Strike Urshifu matchup. That should be enough for you to have some single prize card attacking presence. I mean, I think a lot of these cards are really cool to be just adding into this deck, and it seems to be working out just fine. It's one of those things where I like this deck, how it looks, I like how it plays out. It's not necessarily going to be as consistent, but this deck does have answers to a lot of the top decks in format, including Mew VMAX, etc., etc. I think that this or variants of this deck are certainly going to see success. Certainly a deck that you want to be playtesting matchups against. Certainly a deck that if you're still looking for the play, this might just happen to be the play. I would give this one a try and see if it's the deck for you heading forward to this weekend. I think a lot of the Arceus decks definitely are going to be seeing success at the New Jersey regionals. However, I wouldn't be surprised if the success of these decks at Indy regionals is going to kind of trickle over to other regions going on this weekend. The third biggest deck to watch out for heading into this weekend is going to be Arceus VSTAR with Beedrill. Now, I feel like I've looked at the same 3 decks the past 3 times, and it's basically all going to be on the Arceus Inteleon base. This one's just going to be using Beedrill to go ahead and knock out Pokemon with special energies attached. So very much Isaiah Bradner's second place list from Indianapolis Regionals. Isaiah is a player with a heck of a pull of the metagame because they know what they're doing. They've largely seen the most success this entire season between their finish at Salt Lake City Regionals, EUIC, and of course, most recently, their second place finish at Indianapolis. A lot of players want to be Isaiah, not to make this video creepy or anything, but they're going to want to play the decks that Isaiah plays. And I think this is reasonably one of those things where whether you were a fan of Isaiah or not, you got to look out for this Beedrill deck. It's everywhere. I had the recent pleasure of casting the Atlas 1K, saw a bunch of Beedrill decks out there, definitely inspired by Isaiah's success in the rest of their group. So this is a deck to watch out for. This is a deck to play test against. Watch out for your special energies. Maybe if you are playing a deck, maybe it's better for you to remove some special energies from your deck. So you can see a lot of these decks are cutting down on their double turbo counts. It also would help out against the Whimsicott matchup. This deck's likely going to be bigger in North America this weekend, but it is something to definitely know for other regions as well. Boom, the second biggest deck, and I mean this one's pretty close, it might just be the biggest deck to watch out for this weekend, is Mew VMAX. Now specifically Mew VMAX with Pokemon Catchers. If you haven't been on the wave, Pokemon Catchers was able to make top 4 and top 8 with Andrew Estrada and Michael Long both playing this deck to a top 8 finish, the exact same list. Now, that being said, if you have that level of success, you probably don't really want to be changing too much. Maybe you want to change things up a little bit, but it's one of those things where if you haven't playtested against Mew VMAX with Catchers, might be a good idea to playtest with Catchers, or at least playtest this version of the deck. I think if you took a couple weeks off, Catchers are going to go absolutely spike up in play, and this deck is going to have a different matchup spread than a traditional Mew deck. Just because Catchers can rip things up immediately, especially if you're playing against Arceus decks. So if you are an Arceus players and have not found ways to beat Mew VMAX with Catchers, you might want to reconsider your deck choice or some cards in your deck to try to maybe have a better matchup against this deck, because this deck is a different beast. It's really interesting, definitely something that I've been playtesting for the past week or two. I really think it's just a good idea to see exactly, I don't know how to stress it enough. Just playtest this deck, playtest against this deck, realize that Catchers exist in Mew. That's where we're at. What deck's going to be our #1 deck to watch out for? We'll find out next. Boom, here you have it. The biggest deck to watch out for is going to be Arceus VSTAR Toolbox, the deck that Ian Robb won Indianapolis Regionals with. Now, it's a little bit surprising, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of different decks to watch out for, and I think this is going to be the biggest one because it's very similar to the Arc Dark deck, but if you do see a deck like this, look and see what's going on. You might see a Metachamp hit the board, you might see a Zapdos, you could see other things just being played out of nowhere. So if you do hit an Arceus deck with Inteleon and see Dark Energy, Fighting Energy, this is what you want to watch out for, and you might want to leave yourself knowledgeable about how a Metachamp play can come out, or maybe you don't want to overbench your V Pokemon because you think a Zapdos is going to come out. I mean, I'm sure we're going to see variants of this deck between Arc Dark, Arc Inteleon, this deck, but Ian Robb did win the largest event of the season. Totally worthwhile to prepare for this deck and just understand how it's built. If you don't have this deck built in real life, I totally recommend that you build like at least a proxy version to playtest against, right on some energy cards with a Sharpie at least. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things, if there's a deck to test against the deck that won the last regionals. Because as I was saying with Isaiah Bradner, players that want to replicate success of successful players. Isaiah Bradner has played in 3 events. Ian Ross played in 2 events, top 8 and win. Again, one of the most, if not the most successful player. I would totally test against this deck and at least like consider it. It's a really strong play. We're not all Ian Robb, but this deck gives us the opportunity to feel like it. Test against this deck. And that's what we got going on for this video, and those are the decks to watch out for if you're going to a regional championships this weekend. I mean, are there any decks that you think I missed? Are there any decks that you are personally expecting, or what deck are you bringing to the regionals this weekend if you want to share it to the world? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, thumbs up as well, subscribe to the channel, all that great stuff would really help this channel a lot. We're trying to push past the 11K sub mark. It's been a bit of a slow grind since we hit 10K, but you want to know what, as this channel grows and as I grow as a content creator, player, and person, I'm always looking to reevaluate where things are at. So if you have any suggestions, comments, questions, concerns, videos you want to see, I'm definitely listening in the comments. It's one of those things where I haven't necessarily been the most active in the comments and a lot of things. I've been dealing with a lot lately, but now I'm totally ready to tackle a lot more, really push this channel to the best of its ability, and I'm really excited for the future of whatever's going on. I got a lot of editing to do, and I don't know if you could tell, I don't know if I got bags in my eyes. I just got a new Nespresso, so maybe that's going to solve my tiredness issue, but it's one of those things. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, we're Monday right now, to get this video out on time, after casting the Atlas 1K, getting ready, coaching, all that stuff. If anyone's looking for any last minute coaching, I do have some slots available left, so hit me up if you do want to get a slot ready before the events coming up. That being said, stay tuned for some of these brands that I like to support, and I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out and have a great one. Are you trying to get better at Pokemon TCG? Well, if you are, you're in the right place. I offer coaching at metafy.gg/@ZachLasage. That link is in the description, and you pick up a coaching session from me and book it on the website. I likely have availability this week, and you can see exactly what my availability calendar is at any given time. I offer training plans to help players get ready for any of their upcoming events, including getting all the way to the World Championships, or you can pick up a one-on-one coaching session from me and learn the game at your own pace. I offer a variety of opportunities for players to get better at the game, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of players who I've turned into regional, international, and even a world champion along the way. If there's anything that shows, I have an FAQ on the website, so by all means, check it out and get better today. I'd love to help you on your Pokemon journey and be absolutely amazing to see your growth. If you're looking for a great deal on some physical Pokemon TCG cards, you can head over to atlascollectibles.com or atlastcg.com. Type in whatever cards you're looking for. So Arceus VSTAR is absolutely hot right now. Let's search up Arceus VSTAR. You can see they have a great selection of cards, and it's continuously getting new stock all the time. And we can add these to our cart. You can see I already added one to my cart. So when you're going to check out, you can use code ZLasage8. Use that code, and you can save off your order. That was $4.80 of savings just off of an Arceus V-Star. It's all in Canadian pricing, and they do shipping across the world. So by all means, check out atlastcg.com, atlascollectibles.com, and use code ZLasage8 to save on your next order of physical Pokemon TCG cards. Check out PTCGO Store.com, the best place to get Pokemon TCG online codes. There's a lot of selection available, and I have a discount code available for the website as well. You can pick up any kind of cards, just going up here. You can add them to your cart in any quantity that you need to get the cards that you need. And you can go to the discount code right over here, and you can put in code ZLasage5 to save 5% on your next order of codes. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It means the world to me. And my goal with this channel is to spread my love of the game and knowledge with our entire Pokemon TCG community. If you haven't already, help signal boost this video to other Pokemon TCG fans by liking it, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. Hopefully we reach our goals really soon. Check out this recommended video and have yourself a great day. Thanks.